Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of partnerships and channel on a weekly basis. My name is Rick van der Bos and I'm the CEO and founder at Channext, and I'm here together with Alex Whitford, VP Partners at Channext. Alex, how are you doing today?
Yeah, really excited to be here. We've got an exciting episode coming up.
I agree, because it's a first timer actually, because we're going to discuss our first listener's question actually of the Partnerships Unraveled podcast.
Yeah, we've had lots of feedback from our network, and it's really great to get your feedback. But yeah, first question, we thought this was a really good question to really dig a whole episode into. So that's what we're going to discuss today.
Agree, because it's a question actually we're getting a lot from a lot of vendors we're talking to in the market. So I think that's why it's very interesting as well. And therefore, thank you to our listener, Dao T from SoSafe, who asked, how can I better align with the ISV partners of our resellers? And an ISV is an independent software vendor. So usually that's also called a tech partnership. And I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it, because we've been talking a lot in previous podcasts about building your tech partnerships really from the vendor perspective. But it's also very interesting to start at the channel perspective and then reverse engineer from there.
Yeah, I think the world that we're getting into is all about specialist players and how they work with each other. So we talk a lot here at Channext around sort of horizontal partnerships, which will be your ISV partnerships, and then your vertical partnerships, which typically is your channel. And I think the businesses that build a really holistic approach to nailing horizontal and vertical ultimately are going to win the game. So I think Dao's question's brilliant, because it's how do you build a stronger horizontal partnership program, and what are the best ways to find that? And he's called out a great one, which is the resellers have built some of that for you organically without you having to do anything. So what you should do is go and speak to those resellers and then sort of work from the vertical into the horizontal.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think what we spoke about a lot is when you build channel partnerships, is start with the end user and work backwards. But I think the same is also very viable for ISV partnerships, where you start with the channel and work backwards into who is my ideal ISV partner profile.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually one of the real strengths of the channel, is that different channel players will be experimenting on new routes to market on your behalf, and independently of you having to do anything. And the ISV relationships are a really good one, because there will be partners out there who are selling your product in conjunction with other products and other brands, and they've done a lot of that sort of scientific experimentation on your behalf.
Can we maybe start for our listeners with a brief summary of why ISV partnerships are so important for the end user as well?
Yeah, for sure. So the example that we always talk about is the iPhone, right? The App Store, because what you've got there just is a load of independent software developers creating their own specialist apps. And what's amazing about the way Apple go to market in the iPhone and the App Store is that you can have one product that uses lots of different specialist products, and they all work simultaneously. And as you can imagine, for a user, that means I get the best quality of experience. Spotify just developed music and Google Maps just developed maps, and therefore you get the benefits of working with specialists, but the seamless buying process of the App Store, right? And that's the world's perfect example. The same is true of sort of B2B sales, right? Which is the end user wants to get the best specialist products woven together into a cohesive solution. And the ISV, or the horizontal partnership model, that's how you do that.
Yeah, and I think that's indeed what has boomed a lot in SaaS, of course, because tools are getting more specialist, and especially with those products there as well. And therefore, if you want to bring the ultimate end solution to an end user as a channel partner, for example, then oftentimes you're already integrating at least 5 products together into one solution.
Yeah, it's why HubSpot and Salesforce spend millions and millions every year having this marketplace suite of integrations. They don't just do that to help drive other businesses. They do that to drive their own business. They're being selfish, and it's a very good model, which is they want to make sure that the end user continues to buy their service forever. And the best way to do that is to deliver the highest quality of service, which means you've got to build huge volumes of integrations, and they've built an entire program around building those horizontal partnerships. So if you're an ISV out there and you're thinking, right, how can we add another lever? How can we grow very effectively? Well, the best thing is to deliver the best product possible to the end user, the best solution. And one of the key ways to do that isn't to build or buy, is to integrate.
Yeah, and that then increases renewals, retention, upsells, and therefore the customer lifetime value eventually with the integrations, right?
Yeah, sometimes I just think business is overcomplicated. Deliver the maximal value you can, and you will do pretty well all the time, right? And I think that's the sort of mindset behind channel, behind partnerships is, hang on, we know what we do really well, and we can leverage other people's value to deliver the maximal value to the end user. And yes, that means there's some complexity in working with other people, and it's not as fast, but it will allow you to go really, really far. So I think Dao's question is really great because it's not just thinking, how do we grow really effectively? It's how do we provide a better solution to the end user by integrating with other ISVs.
Yeah, and therefore for the channel partner, of course. And I think that's what's so great about this. And maybe that's nice to start reverse engineering, because that was the question, right? Like, how do I align it better with my resellers, but not just with, but also the ISV partners of my resellers? But if you would approach it from that side, and we start at the channel side, like where do you start? Let's say your goal for the upcoming quarter or for the upcoming years to find 3 very strong ISV partnerships, and you already have quite a large channel with a lot of resellers. Where would you start and how would you approach that?
Yeah, so really easy. There's someone who's done the work for you, and that's great. Don't reinvent the wheel. I see the amount of times sort of channel teams or partnership teams try and design something from scratch. You don't need to. Go and interview your top partners, your top resellers, and understand, how are you selling our product? What are you selling our product with? They will give you the answer, and you can almost do a bit of a white space analysis research. Our top partners are selling into these types of end users with these types of other ISV products. And then you can start to build out an understanding of, why are you selling us with them? What's the reasoning, and what's the benefit to you as a reseller and the benefit to the end user? Why is this cohesive solution a stronger go-to-market offering? And once you've done that due diligence, and I would say don't just ask one partner, ask a few key players, and really get an understanding of why they've built that as a go-to-market motion, then that will give you a really key understanding. Oh, hang on a second, our product pairs really well with this product and this product. That's interesting. Is there a tighter alliance we can form, both in terms of the tech integration, but also in terms of the go-to-market offering?
I like that, because I think if you look at it from that perspective, and also another topic we spoke about a lot are attachment sales. So if you really want to ramp up quickly within your reseller base, it's super interesting if you interview them to find out which vendors are you selling the most, like in quantity, maybe not even in revenue, but where there's the most orders for what vendor, because that can be super interesting if you fit your product and proposition very tightly into that. We've been talking about the extreme examples, of course, with Microsoft Azure and AWS and Zoom and Microsoft Teams, etc. But if you have in your specific niche, if you have a certain player like that that's sold a lot by your resellers, and you find out who they are, but also how your product might be a perfect additional value to that product, that can be very interesting if you can position that very strongly through a lot of resellers.
Yeah, exactly. And I think where the value is, I've seen this happen time and time again, it's the end user and the partners will work out the use cases on your behalf, and it's much easier just to let the users work out the best way that they are going to use it, and then work backwards from that plan and go, okay, well, is this end user completely unique, or do we think there are other types of end users that would benefit from this cohesive solution? Right now, let's go and build a sales and marketing go-to-market to tackle that as a particular problem, right? And what's really interesting is segmentation is the key to winning. So if you're, let's just pick a vertical. If an engineering company has developed or designed these 2 or 3 products together and it really fits a particular use case, well, great. Now go and understand from that partner, do you sell to other engineering companies? Would this also be a good fit? And suddenly you've got a really particular use case of the benefit to the end user, and the benefit for the partner is the same as the benefit for you. They get to make more money, products more sticky, better cohesive solution for the end user. The partner's on your side. You just have to segment those opportunities and then work out how you scale those opportunities.
Yeah, and those use cases are critical, because if you build really strong use cases on a local level with a certain partner, that can help you then to get a lot more adoption within that reseller. But also, if you have some very strong use cases and you then want to go into the ISV partnerships, if you have some very strong use cases on the channel partner level, then you have a very high adoption there as well, because that's what they're always looking at. Like, what is the adoption of a certain integration? What was the effect, the outcome of it, the extra revenue, the extra retention, etc. And I think the stronger you can make a case like that, the stronger case you have both towards your reseller and to your ISV partner.
Yeah, and I think you used a word earlier that I liked, niche, and I think that's really important because I would really try and segment very aggressively and win in a very, very particular space. Even if you think the scope is wider, go very specific for your channel and for the ISV, and then you can add volume and breadth at a later date. But if you're going after the example that we used earlier, engineering, great, then just target that. Go and build the ISV, go and build the channel go-to-market motion to just target engineering companies. But yeah, if you also think it's applicable for manufacturing down the line, great. But if you really narrow the scope, it's easier for the ISV go-to-market motion because they really understand what you're talking about. And it's easier for the channel to take to the end users because you can narrow your sales and marketing messaging to be really, really focused.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the more specific your use case is, the better it is. And sure. I think what's also interesting, indeed, like you start with your existing channel partners, but oftentimes a lot of people we're talking to are also very much looking at new resellers they would love to work with, or where they try to find an entry point. It's also super interesting to interview those resellers. Who are your most important ISV partners? Who are you selling the most? Who are you getting the best customer feedback from, etc.? Because that could be an excellent entry point as well. That as soon as you've built a relationship with a certain ISV partner, or you're going to build a certain integration, that could be the ultimate entry point into your top desired value-added resellers.
Yeah, exactly. Logic will dictate, right? You will have a channel, and your ISV partner will also have a channel. That channel won't perfectly match. And by building this integration, it's an opportunity for you to cross-sell into that white space within each other's channels. And that's a really easy value lever to scale very, very effectively. Did you know we work with this ISV partner? They're a key partner of yours, and here's how we target engineering end users. Do you have any engineering end users? Oh, yeah, we do. Perfect. Then we can focus just on a really specific business plan around how we access that market. But that's your easy mechanism into that partner. Once they're selling your product into there, then you can widen the scope and then you can get wider. But you want to deliver value in a really specific way that's measurable, that's attainable, that's drivable. And then from there, you can land and expand very easily.
Yeah, and I think then as a final gut check for yourself to do before you really dive into a new ISV partnership is also account mapping. So let's take it with this use case. Indeed, you've talked to many of your channel partners. They have a very strong use case, some of them around engineering. Then you're going to build it up. You've spoken to a couple of new on your partner wish list that you would like to work with. They also tell you the same use case. And then finally, if you start building a relationship with that ISV partner, then you can use tools like Crossbeam or Reveal, where you can do account mapping to check if there's actually a lot of overlap already in each other's customer or prospect based in the specific engineering vertical. And I think if you've taken these 3 steps, then you really have very thorough research to decide on which ISV partners to focus.
It's a great call out. I think what's massively overlooked, and it's hard to get the balance right, but some ISVs will be way too focused at the partner level and they'll just hope that the partners are hitting the end users. And some are way too focused at the end user level and the partners just act as facilitation. You want to get the balance right. And so you're building a 2-partner strategy and a 3-partner strategy. And products like Reveal and Crossbeam are amazing at that end user level, the through partner. And what you want to find out is that there's loads of overlap. Maybe the end users haven't weaved the products together, but if there's loads of overlap at the end user level and you've got good data from the partners to saying that they want to see the overlap at the partner level, suddenly you can be very, very confident about your go-to-market motion because you've got those 2 pillars covered very effectively.
Yeah, I think what we did right now was really an analysis of how do you reverse engineer starting from the channel and then going back to the ISV partners. But then it's very interesting, of course, if you start getting those use cases, if you feel a little bit of traction, to think the other way around. How are we now going to scale it as ISV partners through our combined channel? And maybe before we're going to dive into the specifics, what is really the moment when you should look at, okay, when should you keep it small and when should you start about taking it bigger into the market?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about self-sustainable revenue, right? Which is the goal for any channel, is to get your partners independently driving business as much as possible. And by independently, I mean they do 8 out of 10 actions without you really having to get involved. That is a really good litmus test to say we can now scale, because partners are fairly self-sufficient, fairly independent. And so what you've done to do that is you've invested either in technology that helps you automate, or you've built programmatic tools, things like quote builders or whatever, that helps the partner do that at scale. That's a really good time, once the partners are fairly self-sufficient at a micro level, to start thinking macro. How do we, rather than have 3 partners who are fairly self-sufficient, how do we have 50 partners who are fairly self-sufficient, and then work on a scaling journey to start adding and enabling and driving those partners to self-sustainable revenue? And there are really, really good tools. You know, we work at Channext, and we have a great tool to help automate and drive that scalable process, because really that's got to be the drive. There's no good building the integration just for a couple of partners. If you're building the integration, the goal has to go nuclear, right? The goal has to go wide and deep. And there are automation tools to help you drive that scale.
Yeah, so you start with a very specific use case in the beginning, where you try to find, do we really can find traction in on a micro level indeed. Then you start looking, can we then take that use case to multiple channel partners, to my resellers, and see if we can implement it for multiple end users as well. And as soon as you get to that level and you see that your partners are able to find customers, to close the customers, and then also to make them successful, that's probably the number one thing at the moment to start thinking about. Okay, now we got this very strong use case with our ISV partner, and now how can we make sure we get it to as many channel partners and resellers as possible?
Yeah, like the easiest example to digest, and it's one I see a lot, is you'll have a US company, and they've built self-sustainable revenue with an ISV partnership in the US. Brilliant. Well, there's absolutely no reason that's not going to work in UK, France, Germany, Spain, and all across different territories. You've just got to make sure you've got the right resources and translation to take those programmatic tools and drive them into other territories. Because if the end users are buying the product and the integration works and the partners are happy with the go-to-market motion, you can cookie cutter that approach into other territories. And that's one of the simplest and fastest ways I see people going wide, but also not diluting their current market, because that can be a danger when you add scale. Is there's only so much business that the end users are going to buy, and suddenly you've quadrupled the amount of partners. Well, all you've done is cut the pie a different way. And instead, if you go laterally into new territories, the partners in the existing territory are protected and they're still self-sustainable revenue, but you know the approach works and you can just copy and paste.
Yeah, I think when you're going to scale, that cookie cutter approach is a good mindset to have. And I think one of the key things to start with is bundling and additional services, right? Because that's what I hear a lot. Like you really need to first show your partners, your resellers, what's the value proposition. So that's very clear for them. But then also the easier you make it for them to sell it, but also what type of additional services can they sell, the better it is. Where would you start if you are like almost ready to start scaling this in like making this in maybe even some kind of a menu? Like what's the approach there?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the best things, again, is to start at the partner, start at the reseller, and understand what services are your value-added resellers doing. Because what they will be doing is they will be filling in the blanks of your go-to-market offering. You know, a really classic one, if you're an AV product, okay, we'll do on-site installation, setup, and training. Okay, well, that makes sense. Everyone understands that. Now, what some companies do is they will then create a certification around that. And so what they'll say is, here's how you do on-site installation, training, and adoption. And then we'll train the partners on that so that they get a certification and badge. And that educates all the new partners. Oh, okay, this is something I can now charge for. I understand how to do. And obviously the benefit to the end user is they are getting those services. The benefit to the resellers, there's extra revenue and margin available from those value-added services. And the benefit for you, the product and the channel works better. And you've got consistency of approach by almost making a certification around that service.
Yeah, so for the value-added services, it's again really starting at the channel partner and the reseller, find out what's most important for them and reverse engineer, and then also test like are multiple channel partners and resellers doing this, and can we scale this and really make this into like almost a regular package, so to say, that they can immediately offer when they sell your product.
Yeah, having worked in distribution, we used to do this all the time, right? When we used to recruit a partner, we'd take the partner through a technology offering, and then we'd also tell them, by the way, here are the services that you should be looking at, because this will help you make more money. And for us, it was a big win. We want them to make money because then they're more likely to sell more of our products because they're more bought into it. And so if you're an ISV, you absolutely don't just want to be thinking insular. Think about partner success as the heart of your own success, and the value-added services that they provide is critical to making that happen continuously, because typically it's 100% margin for them, and resellers are margin-led businesses. And so 100% margin line items are incredible to that consistent growth.
Yeah, that's what resellers love. And it's nice that you touch upon distribution, because I think that's where there's also a massive role when you do bundling. So the first step is to make your integration as easy as possible, so that becomes easier for your resellers as well. But distribution can play a vital role in terms of bundling as well. When you are building those ISV partners, you bundle it, and resellers can actually buy it as a bundle. Easy for them on one invoice, one quote, etc. Also getting a combined price, like where you give maybe discounts, things like that, when the products are actually bundled. What do you think with that, with distribution, and what other ways are there maybe for bundling?
Yeah, it's a fantastic call out. It's something, Microsoft has spent a lot of time, for example, doing, where they've got a purchasing platform that scales via distribution. And like you say, you can co-term the bills, right? What an end user doesn't want is, I get a bill on the 1st, 4th, 7th, and the 9th, depending on when I bought the product. No, I want one co-termed bill for all of my ISV offerings. And even on the services element, what you'll see is distributors have their own services available, which they can sell through the partner. And then if the partner's actually selling a lot of the product, they'll actually say, no, we'll do the certification ourselves, and then we don't need to use your services, and we'll make 100% margin. And so distribution can take away a lot of the operational pain of those ISV products. And really that's the sweet spot for distribution, is making those operational elements flow really, really well. The example we always used to use, the best use case for an end user, is I get software and hardware in a finance contract in a co-termed bill. That makes it really, really easy to buy a complicated suite of products and services in that cohesive element that we're talking about earlier.
And co-termed is a new definition for me. Is that you like align the bills all together in the same months, and not have like, oh, I once bought it a year ago on the 15th, and now I also always get it on that day?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is, if we just take a real world example, and there are services that do this, you have Netflix, Amazon, and Disney Plus. Well, you get 3 different bills. Some services will pull that into one media bill, and it will all come out at the same time. And there's an economies of scale, which is as you buy more products and services, it all comes into one financial price, makes it much easier for the finance people within the end user to understand exactly what's coming in and out, because you've got an itemized bill, and it becomes far more predictable.
Yeah, so that's great for the reseller and for the end user in that case.
Makes cash flow really, really keen. And it's one of those things that lots of people won't talk about, but then you'll speak to a CFO at a VAR, and suddenly they'll be like, hang on, I love working with this and this brand, because I just see money in, money out, money in, money out, and the only thing that's left is the margin at the end of the month.
Yeah, and we're reading everywhere how important the CFO is at the moment, right?
Yeah, the kings of the deal through a recession, right? And I think it's really, really important to focus on partner success. And the finance people is amazing. They have such control on perception within the partner. I know salespeople that absolutely loved a vendor that's ended up being pulled because the CFO hates working with them, because they always pay late or whatever, the stock's going missing and it's complicated to work with. Salesperson's really happy because you just see the margin, but CFO's worrying about the actual gross profit, right? And that's a very different game. So keeping finance on side and everyone working together to the partner's success, that's going to keep you happy long term.
Yeah, fully agree there. I think now we've got quite a clear view on how to pick your ISVs. Then also from there, when should you start micro, like really with that use case, but also when can you start thinking about scaling? Now we got bundles, we got good additional services. And now the goal, of course, is to make sure that as many end users as possible find out about this ISV partnership through those resellers. where do you start as if you're building this?
Yeah, marketing, right? That has to be, if you want to speak to the masses, build a really, really good marketing approach. What I would be doing is I'd be investing in a marketing automation tool designed to enable the channel at scale. And then I would be pulling together marketing message around that go-to-market offering. So the classic one, if we're doing the engineering go-to-market, I pull together the 3 ISVs. We all pool our money together to absolutely scale the reach, build a really specific marketing message aimed at that vertical, and ideally cascade that marketing message through the exact partners that sell to that vertical, so that you can take that segmented message through those partners to your end users to really drive the purchase flow that you want.
And the use case is crucial there, I think, which you start with, because that's an excellent pillar content for your marketing campaigns that you're going to run, because that works really well on an end user level. You're already building that use case with at least one extra ISV, maybe more, and also with resellers together. So that's getting stronger and stronger. And then it's all about execution indeed. Like, how do you get your message through your resellers to the end user as effectively as possible? And I think what's wildly interesting, if you combine multiple ISVs, then you can create the content together. So it becomes less resources per company to create that content. For the rest, you also can combine your budgets together. And we all know that the most expensive part of a campaign is the beginning. You hire an agency, they do all the work, they set up all your campaigns, etc. You start advertising, you need to learn what's working, what's not working, etc. Well, if you're, let's say the 3 ISVs all have 10K for such a campaign, if they would all do it themselves, then probably the first 5K of every ISV is already wasted on experimenting and creating assets and stuff like that. But if you combine it together, you have 30K, 5K is used for the first phase, and the 25K is all in on getting you the ROI you want, on getting you the new leads, the opportunities you want to create. And I think that's super interesting if you really start scaling your ISV co-marketing through your resellers, that there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, your the simple math is your budget's going to go 3 times further, right? And I think that's the stuff where you're going, well, that means I can do 3 times as many campaigns. Imagine if I could say you can triple your marketing budget. Every marketeer in the world's going to say, yes, please. How do we make that happen? And the honest answer is, with good sales design or good strategic design to build the ISV go-to-market motion, now you can, because you can pull resources and hunt for those end users together. And if you have that collaborative mindset, that's really where you're going to drive the approach that you need. And for the partners, this is such a key win. This is why we love talking about marketing enablement as the way to make this happen, because there's 2 things that happen. 1, the end users become more interested and it triggers buying cycles. 2, that makes the partners more engaged because there's deals to talk about. But 3, the partners also see that you are helping them drive business, which in turn curries favor and is going to make the sales teams more proactive to sell your solution.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you want. And I think maybe from my experience, I've seen dozens of those campaigns. The type of content that works best are use cases, webinars together with your ISVs, maybe even invite a customer of which the use case is actually about, and industry trend reports. And that's also super nice when you work with other ISV partners. You can pull together multiple data points, because every SaaS company is actually collecting a lot of data, of course. And I think those 3 things can really help you. And resellers love that type of content as well, because it brings a lot of value to their end user. It's not just that look at how great this product is, but it's very solution oriented.
Yeah, it's actually outcome orientated, which is the bit that you want, right? Features and benefits are just a waste of time in marketing. The example I always use whenever we're training the sales team internally is Apple doesn't market how good the webcam is in the MacBook. What they do is they market the feeling of owning a MacBook, because that's the outcome that they are selling. That's why they get to charge such high prices. You as an ISV should be doing the same thing. You're talking about the outcome that your solution delivers. And if you can really educate the market on why your product revolutionizes engineering approach, let's say, then that's great. Then talk about the outcome, and you can do that cross-functionally because you're selling the outcome of the joint solution. Stretch your budget 3 times as far. It's more targeted and powerful at the end user and is going to drive partner engagement. To me, that's the cohesive marketing strategy that you want, especially if you invest in a tool that really scales and segments effectively.
Yeah, I think we can conclude there's only benefits to aligning your ISV partners with and for your resellers.
Yeah, shout out Dao for the great question.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, if you ever have a question or you want us to discuss a certain topic, you can always send Alex or me a DM. That's the same thing that Dao did. We really appreciate it. And looking forward to see you next week.